Throughout your career as a real estate agent, you'll attend many closings, so it's important to have a clear understanding of them. We're going to take some time to go over the general closing process and discuss some of the various closing costs that buyers and sellers should be prepared for. Before closing, the agent will generally call the title company and confirm no changes have occurred since the preliminary title search. Then they're ready for the deed, mortgage release, and other documents to be recorded. As soon as the recording is confirmed, checks are then distributed to every party whom funds are due from the escrow, along with any papers or documents that must be delivered. Several days later, the buyer and lender will receive a title insurance policy in the mail from the title company. The Public Recorder's Office also mails the documents it recorded to each party. The deed is sent to the buyer, the mortgage release to the seller, and the new mortgage to the lender. When a borrower applies for a mortgage, the lender is legally required to provide the borrower with a document known as a loan estimate. This document is an itemized list of all the fees and costs associated with the loan. The lender must deliver the loan estimate to the borrower within 3 business days of receiving the borrower's loan application. The loan estimate must also be provided to the borrower at least 7 business days before any credit transaction is consummated. While it's only an estimate, the difference between it and the actual closing costs cannot be more than 10%. The closing disclosure lists the actual fees and charges imposed on the borrower. A copy of the closing disclosure has to be provided to the borrower at least 3 business days before the consummation of the transaction. To clarify, consummation isn't the same as a closing or settlement. While they can happen at the same time, consummation is a legally distinct point in time when the borrower becomes contractually obligated to the lender. Since most real estate transactions don't necessarily occur on the first day of the year or even the first day of the month, annual and monthly fees may end up being divided between the buyer and the seller depending on the date the title was transferred. These payments are said to be prorated. Prorated costs can include homeowners' fees, property taxes, and utility bills. Often the seller will have paid for the month or the year, but the seller doesn't end up owning the property for that paid period. The seller is then credited for the balance of the period of time in which the seller no longer owns the property. Transfer taxes are levied by the local governments when property is transferred from one person to another. Also known as conveyance tax or excise tax, transfer taxes are paid by the seller of the property. Closing costs are typically between 2 and 5% of the purchase price of a home. Closing costs are fees charged by lenders and third parties related to the purchase of the home. So in addition to the down payment on the home and the principal and interest related to the mortgage, a home buyer also owes the lender and third parties closing costs. These are usually paid at the time a buyer closes escrow. They can include fees for things like credit reports, loan origination fees, attorney fees, charges for inspections, discount points, appraisal fees, title insurance, title search fees, escrow deposits, and recording or underwriting fees. Many of the fees associated with closing escrow will be paid by the seller, but these costs can sometimes be negotiated. It depends on the specific scenario, but assisting your client with negotiating the closing costs can be invaluable to them.